Night. The city is asleep. The only sound, the quiet tapping of rain on the window. Anna sits by the glass wrapped in a warm blanket, holding a cup of tea that's already gone cold. It feels like the whole world is sleeping, except her. And then, far away beyond the trees, she notices a small golden light. Not the cold glow of a street lamp, but something softer, warmer, almost alive. She leans closer to the window, and the light fades. She steps back, and it appears again, as if the lantern only shines for those who are awake. From that night on, it became her quiet ritual. When she couldn't sleep, she would look toward that gentle glow in the distance. Sometimes it flickered with the wind. Sometimes it shone steady, like it could feel her heartbeat. And slowly, the night began to feel less empty. Over time, she started to talk to it, softly, telling little stories about her day, her thoughts, her dreams. And sometimes, just sometimes, the light would flicker, as if listening. One morning, after another sleepless night, Anna decided to find it. She wrapped herself in a scarf, stepped out into the damp air, and walked along the quiet, glistening paths. Near the river, she saw it, a small lantern sitting alone on an old wooden bench. The flame shimmered softly, golden and calm. On the glass, a little plaque read, "For those who can't sleep." Beside it lay a note. "If you see this light, it means you're not alone. Take it home if you wish. Let it glow for those who are still awake." She smiled, lifted the lantern, and carried it home carefully, like a small piece of the night itself. Its warmth wasn't from a bulb. It felt alive. From that day on, the lantern stood by her bedside. Some nights it was dark and still. Other nights it lit up on its own, glowing faintly, as if sensing that somewhere someone else was awake too. Anna started keeping a little notebook. Tonight, the lantern shines again. Maybe someone is thinking too much. Maybe someone's just listening to the rain days turn into weeks. And then one night, the lantern shone brighter than ever before. She walked to her window, and in the distance, she saw another light, then another, and another. Dozens of tiny golden dots across the dark city, like stars that had fallen to earth. She suddenly understood. There were others, people who couldn't sleep, who stayed awake, thinking, dreaming, waiting for the quiet to return. And all of them were connected by this light. Some nights, her lantern would stay dark. Other nights, it glowed gently until morning. But Anna no longer wondered why. She just knew if the light was shining, it meant someone somewhere was awake too. And if you right now can't fall asleep, look outside your window. Maybe far away in the darkness, you'll see a little golden glow, and it will be shining just for you. Good night. May your dreams be soft. May your thoughts be light. And may your night always hold a little warmth from the lantern that shines for those who can't sleep. Somewhere else, under the same sky, another story was unfolding. The night was warm, not because of the air, but because of the calm that settled over the forest. Smoke from the campfire rose lazily, drawing soft ribbons in the dark that dissolved into silence. A woman sat on a small hill, her knees pulled close, and beside her, on a stone, rested an old lantern. It wasn't the focus of the scene, just a quiet detail that made the picture whole. Her name was Marina. She wasn't in a hurry. Everything she needed that night fit inside one simple rhythm. The crackle of fire, the scent of pine, the hum of insects weaving their own lullaby. The fire didn't demand attention, it simply existed, a gentle warmth that held the world in place. Marina listened to the forest, not to find meaning, just to hear it breathe. Every sound carried its own pulse, the leaves whispering, the distant call of an owl, the faint movement of night animals in the brush. It was all part of a quiet rhythm, a reminder that the world continues to live even when no one is watching. She hadn't come here to escape or forget. She came to listen. During the day, we fill ourselves with noise, tasks, words, unfinished thoughts. At night, the world gives us a chance to let it all go. Marina had found this little clearing by accident, a soft patch of grass where the ground still held the day's warmth. Here, she could exist without doing anything at all. The story began with a breath. She loosened her scarf and let her shoulders fall. A memory surfaced. Her grandfather's quiet voice by a campfire long ago, telling her about the stars. It wasn't painful. It was like touching something familiar, a thread that connected the person she was then to the one she had become now. The fire flickered, and she saw her own thoughts reflected in it. Fragments, questions, small flashes of clarity. But the fire didn't judge. It simply turned everything into light and warmth. And the longer she watched it, the more her thoughts slowed, turning into feelings rather than words. A picture appeared in her mind. A small house by a river where mornings began with tea, a smile, and a moment of quiet before the day. Those small rituals, she realized, were what made life feel steady. Peace isn't something grand. It's found in the simplest, repeated gestures. Somewhere behind her, a pine cone fell. The sound rippled through the silence, and she smiled without knowing why. Every breath of the forest felt healing, as if the air itself was helping her rest. Here, nothing needed to be explained. Even silence had meaning. She poured herself a cup of tea. The light of the fire shimmered in it, and the warmth filled her chest. It was enough just to hold something warm, to exist in this small circle of light without reaching for more. Her thoughts drifted to people she no longer saw often, but whose warmth still lived quietly inside her. There was no sadness, only gratitude. Memories like these don't take energy. They give it back. The night deepened. Sparks rose and disappeared, each one a tiny story ending softly. She thought, not everything has to last forever, and that's okay. Even short moments can be complete. The forest grew quieter, and inside her, a calm certainty appeared. Being alive, she thought, is simply a collection of moments, each one a chance to be kind, to breathe, to let go. Before dawn, Marina gently covered the fire. The glow faded, leaving a soft red trace in the ashes. She folded her scarf, packed her cup, and looked once more at the clearing. The world didn't look empty. It looked whole. As she walked back along the path, the forest's whispers followed her. No longer background noise, but part of her own rhythm. Each step felt like an answer. The night had done its quiet work. When the first light touched the treetops, Marina smiled, not because of hope or plans, but because peace had found her. She knew now that there are places where one can simply be, and that is enough. The night had passed, but its calm stayed with her, a soft signature beneath the new day. And now, a story of a different kind, calm on the outside, but chaos beneath. The night began as it always did, rain tapping softly against the window, and a warm amber glow spilling from the corner lamp, casting long, sleepish shadows across a cluttered desk. Elias didn't repair clocks for money. He did it to keep his memories in order, as if fixing broken timepieces helped him keep his own time from falling apart. Late one evening, someone knocked on the door. A young woman stood outside in the rain, her coat soaked, her hands clutching a small wooden box. Her face looked tired, but calm. She said her grandfather had passed away, and in his house they found this box. A brass clock inside, stopped on the very night he died. "Could you take a look at it?" she asked quietly. Elias opened the lid. The clock was beautiful. Hand-engraved initials on the back, the minute hand frozen at exactly 11:23. As they spoke, she told him her grandfather often said that not all minutes are equal. Some moments, he believed, should be kept safe, not in boxes, but in songs. Her voice softened as she remembered singing to him as a child, a simple lullaby he always loved. "He told me," she said, "that songs are clocks that can't be measured by hands." When Elias opened the back of the clock, he didn't find a repair note. Instead, there was a small folded piece of paper. It said only, "If the clock stops, don't let the light inside." It sounded like superstition. Still, out of respect, he decided to wait until morning before winding it again. But close to midnight, as the rain grew heavier, curiosity got the better of him. He turned the key. The gears clicked and whirred. The hands trembled, then stopped again. 11:23. At that exact moment, the lamp flickered. Its warm glow turned pale and cold. The radio went silent, and outside, the whole street fell into a heavy, unnatural stillness. A few minutes later, the woman returned. This time, she carried a small glass sphere, fogged with age, a slip of paper floating inside. "My grandfather said it holds echoes," she whispered, "things that can't be spoken." When she placed it near the lamp, the light bent strangely across the glass. In one reflection, Elias saw a shadow, too tall, too thin, as if it didn't belong in the room. She clutched the sphere tighter. "He told me to sing if something ever went wrong." They read the note again together. "If the clock stops, don't let the light inside." And suddenly, it made sense. It wasn't just about lamps or rooms. It was about memory, about not letting harsh light erase what should be felt, not explained. Elias reached for the lamp, then stopped. He turned it off. Darkness filled the room, and in that silence, new sounds began. Not footsteps, but whispers, soft, rustling murmurs, as if the old things around them had finally found their voices. The woman began to hum her lullaby. Her voice wasn't just a song. It was a key. The whispers softened. Inside the glass sphere, faint images appeared. A child's room, an old chair, the smell of evening tea. The song blended with the ticking of the clock, and slowly the hands began to move again. Steady now, peaceful. They showed the right time. The woman smiled, relieved, but a little sad. "He wanted to be remembered by voice," she said. "Not by objects, not by things, but by sound." She placed the sphere in her bag and left quietly. Elias sat in the stillness, realizing that his work wasn't just about fixing time anymore. It was about keeping its memories alive. By morning, the rain had stopped. Sunlight streamed through the window, resting on the brass clock. It ticked evenly again, and in its rhythm, Elias could almost hear the faint echo of her song. He slipped the note back inside the case and closed it carefully. Not as a habit, But as an act of respect, days passed. Fewer people came to his shop, but each clock that did felt like it carried someone's voice inside. Sometimes, when it rained again and the lamp flickered softly, Elias would hum that same lullaby, just to be sure the memory was still there. One evening, he found an old photograph in a drawer, a man smiling, holding the same brass clock. And somehow, he knew it was her grandfather. That night, Elias wrote his own note. Time isn't only made of hours. Listen first. Don't rush to bring in the light. He placed it inside an empty wooden box, set it on the shelf beside his teacup, and turned off the lamp. The rain started again, gentle and slow. He listened to the rhythm on the window, then sang quietly, not for anyone, but for what they had all shared, that sometimes memory lives in a voice, and that's enough. Sometimes silence is louder than any sound. It waits behind old walls, beneath forgotten songs, and inside the spaces people leave behind. Some try to ignore it, but a few try to understand it. This story is about one of them, a man who made keys not to open doors, but to open silence itself. In a small riverside town lived a locksmith named Mark. His shop stood at the corner of two narrow streets, where mornings were filled with hurried footsteps, and evenings glowed with the warm light of street lamps. Mark's hands were steady, his eyes patient. He believed that every lock had a story, and that the right key could awaken a memory long forgotten. One rainy afternoon, an old woman entered his shop. She wore a deep blue cloak and carried a quiet sadness with her. "I need a key," she said softly, "but not for a door, for silence." Mark frowned. "For silence?" She nodded, placing a small wooden box on the counter. Inside was a faded note that read, "Where sound dies, something unspoken begins to live." He didn't ask questions. He simply began to work. He shaped the metal carefully, smooth, light, without edges, like a calm lake beneath the moon. And as he worked, he thought about what it means to open something that cannot be heard. When the key was finished, the woman returned. She didn't take it right away. Instead, she told him a story about a house on the edge of town, about her son, who once filled it with laughter, but left many years ago. Now, only silence lived there, too deep, too heavy. "I don't want to lock it away," she said. "I want to open it, to find what's still alive in that quiet." The next morning, Mark walked to the old house. The garden was overgrown. The door was stiff and gray with dust. He brushed it off and placed the key into the lock. At first, it resisted, as if guarding the years it held inside. Then came a soft click. The door sighed open. Inside, the silence wasn't empty. It was layered, a chair creaking, a window trembling, the faint echo of a child's laugh hiding in the corners. No ghosts, just memory. Memory that had been waiting to breathe again. Mark moved through each room carefully. Every sound felt familiar, as if the house itself was waking up. On the table, he found a toy. Small, worn, missing one button eye. He lifted it gently, and the silence changed. It softened. It became warm. When he told the old woman what had happened, she smiled through her tears. "My son left for the north," she said. "We lost touch. But now I can hear him again. Not his voice, just the space where it used to be." Mark understood. The key had not opened a door. It had opened a memory. Weeks passed. People began to whisper about the locksmith at the crossroads. They brought him broken watches, empty boxes, forgotten locks. He never promised miracles. He simply listened and sometimes quietly handed them a key. One evening, a young musician arrived with an old guitar. "I need a key," he said. "Not for a door, but for a song I can't play anymore." Mark smiled and made a thin, resonant key. When the musician turned it inside a wooden music box, the guitar strings began to hum, playing a melody no one remembered, yet everyone somehow knew. It wasn't magic, it was memory. Memory gently waking up. Months went by. A woman came to the shop with her little boy. He stopped at the window, staring at a heart-shaped key. The woman smiled and whispered, "Sometimes keys don't open doors. They open people." Mark looked at his hands darkened with metal dust, and smiled quietly. He understood now. His craft was not about locks or precision. It was about listening to what doesn't speak. That night, rain whispered against the window panes. Mark closed his shop, set the key of silence on the counter, and poured himself a cup of tea. He began to hum a tune, soft, uncertain, but full of life. Outside, the world went on, people laughing, shouting, living their small, endless stories. But inside the little workshop, time stood still. It breathed, it listened, and in that silence, the keymaker finally found peace.